Starting the stream. And you guys are good to go. All loss will be roughly around 1246. Again, we're slightly flexible with that, but good luck, everyone. Have a good round.
Okay, awesome. All right, both sides ready. Present and ready to proceed. Sorry.
The defense is present and ready to proceed.
Awesome. Plaintiff?
Yes, we're ready to proceed.
Okay, let's go ahead and make introductions from the plaintiff and then begin with preliminary matters.
All right. My name is Taylor Pursley. I'm here with my co-counsel, Mr. Zion Miller.
Good morning, Your Honor.
And Ms. Caitlin Hunt.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
And we represent the plaintiff in today's case pursuing battery.
Okay. So sorry for the weird lighting in my camera. I don't know why I set it up this way, but fate has decided you won't see me. So, oh wait, now we're okay. So, okay. Defense, let's have introductions from you, and then we'll turn it over to plaintiff again for the full preliminary matters portion. So, defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. I'm Vishu Chandrasekhar, and along with my co-counsel, Ms. Zoe Swenson.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Ms. Swenson.
And Mr. Max Liu.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Liu.
Represent the defendant in today's case, Ms. Harper Martini.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. And just so I understand defense, is the defendant in this case Harper Martini, or is she vicariously liable for the actions of Peony Estates? Just so I have a grip on that.
The defendant is Harper Martini, Your Honor, since this is a battery trial.
Okay, great. I think I had heard a little different yesterday, so I'm glad you cleared that up. Okay, cool. Plaintiff, preliminary matters.
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to invoke Rule 603, the constructive swearing in of all witnesses.
Okay. So invoked.
And also Rule 615, the constructive sequestration of all witnesses.
Okay, so order of witnesses will be sequestered, and that will be the rule for the day. Is there an exception for the defendant in this case, or is she also sequestered per the rule?
Your Honor, our party representative, Ms. Harper Martini, will be present throughout today's trial.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up, defense. All right, back to plaintiff.
And Your Honor, as this is a Zoom trial, if there's any technical difficulties, let us know. We'll do our best to rectify the situation.
Thank you for that. I know things can be complicated. So on your guys' end too, the only thing I recommend watching out for is just if I know it can be totally unintentional, just talking over a witness or whatever, because there's a delay. I'm happy to give every bit of the benefit of the doubt that it's totally an accident. So don't worry about that, but just make sure that, we can only hear one voice at a time. So just be mindful of that.
And Your Honor, before trial, we agreed with opposing counsel that if there was any technical difficulties that were made worse by time issues, then we would do our best to rectify that situation as well.
Okay, that's wonderful. If you guys are going to come up with a plan for that, that's great.
And with that, the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
Excellent. We'll turn it over to defense for any other matters.
The defense does have a few things, Your Honor.
Okay.
In this trial, we intend to offer character evidence. We've submitted a form that serves as notice that we're offering character evidence against Angel Rodriguez to the trait of truthfulness. Opposing counsel has seen and signed this document.
And I'm guessing if that form becomes an issue, you can screen share that with me, or am I able to be privy to that if the situation comes up?
Yes, Your Honor, we can screen share it with you at any time.
Okay, wonderful. And we'll deal with that situation as we get to it.
Next, I'd like to draw the court's attention to the stipulations. Ms. Swenson, could you pull those up for me? Just a moment, Your Honor.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay.
Okay.
Pursuant to Stipulation 3, Exhibits 1 through 10 are pre-admitted in this trial, and we'd just like to note that they're already in evidence.
Okay, and Dariah, Sam, can you guys see that too?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check that box. All right. Is that it for the stipulations?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Swenson, you can take that down. And Your Honor, when entering exhibits other than 1 through 10, would it be all right if we put the exhibit up on the screen just to show the witness, constructively outside the view of the jury until it's been moved into evidence?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Just different procedures for that I know have been convenient for different folks. But yeah, whatever works for you guys, I'm sure the process has been agreed upon. Just do whatever works.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, The defense is ready to proceed.
All right, so we'll turn it over to plaintiff for opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor, sorry, just getting set up. All right. May I proceed?
Yes, you may. Good morning.
May it please the court. Opposing counsel, members of the jury. This is Genesis Petrillo. And today you're going to hear a lot about her. You'll hear that she loved her fiance, Casey Soto. That she loved going to trivia on Thursday nights with her friends, and that she loved guacamole. But you'll also hear that Genesis never made it to her wedding day. She died a tragic and untimely death on the night before what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. You'll learn that she was killed by pesticides and that this was no accident. The evidence will show that her soon-to-be mother-in-law, Harper Martini, the defendant in today's case, poisoned her. The evidence will show that Harper Martini picked her poison, poured pesticides into a bottle of wine, and gave it to Genesis. As a result, you'll find that the defendant is liable for battery. In order to prove a charge of battery, we have to prove three elements to you. The first being a bad act, that the defendant poured pesticides into a bottle of wine. Second, we have to prove that when she did so with the intent to cause Genesis harm. Finally, we have to show you that actually Genesis did suffer harm as a result of that wine bottle. We have to prove that based on a preponderance of the evidence, which simply means more likely than not. All we have to do in today's trial is tip the mental scales in your mind just ever so slightly, so that you find it's just the slightest amount more likely than not that the defendant picked her poison. In order to meet that burden, we'll call Angel Rodriguez to the scene. Ms. Rodriguez was Genesis Petrillo's best friend and her maid of honor. She'll lay out the scene for you, tell you what was happening on the day of the wedding rehearsal dinner when Genesis died. She'll tell you about all the things she saw and heard at that wedding rehearsal dinner, and how after drinking a bottle of wine given to her by Harper, Genesis fell ill. Ms. Rodriguez will tell you that she rushed Genesis to the hospital, but the doctors couldn't save her. Genesis died in the hospital. Ms. Rodriguez will also tell you that before being rushed to the hospital, Genesis confided in her that she was afraid the defendant was going to hurt her. So next you'll learn how the defendant hurt Genesis. When we call Dr. Kwan, the attending emergency room physician that saw Genesis in the hospital. Dr. Kwan will walk you through the medical facts of today's case and explain to you that the evidence shows Genesis was most likely poisoned by pesticides, and that the most likely way Genesis was poisoned by those pesticides was through a wine bottle. So we'll talk to you about that wine bottle when we call Sam Arnold to the stand. Sam Arnold was a chef at Peony Estates the day of the wedding. Ms. Arnold will come before you and tell you that she was with Harper Martini in the kitchen right before the dinner. She'll tell you that in the kitchen with her and Harper was a bottle of pesticides and a bottle of wine. Ms. Arnold will tell you that she asked the defendant what those pesticides were for. And you'll hear that the defendant replied, to kill pests like Genesis. That this bottle of wine is going to take care of my problems for good. Members of the jury, it's no secret that some in-laws hate who their child is marrying. And in today's case, the evidence will show that that hate turned poisonous. The evidence will show that the defendant picked her poison. And so at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Caitlin Hunt, will come before you, walk you through the evidence, and remind you that the defendant is liable for battery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, counsel, and we'll turn it over to the defense for their opening. Please proceed when ready.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. They'll tell you the tragedy, but ignore the truth. It's June 8th, 2019. Harper Martini wakes up feeling conflicted. Her only child, Casey Soto, is marrying Genesis Petrillo, someone Harper doesn't always agree with. But Harper knows that Genesis makes Casey so happy. So she puts aside her feelings and goes down to Genesis's room to make amends one more time. Genesis isn't there. No one knows where Genesis is except Angel Rodriguez, a member of the wedding party who announces at 9 a.m. that Genesis is in a coma. Harper holds down the fort while Casey rushes to the hospital. It's too late. Genesis is dead. Now, the plaintiff just got up here and told you about a mother who didn't approve of her daughter's fiance. And that's true. They told you that Harper and Genesis fought, and that's true too. But then they told you that Harper was so furious at Genesis that she would throw away her relationship with her only daughter by poisoning Casey's fiance the night before her wedding. And that would be some tragedy, all right. But it's not the truth. You're going to hear from Blair Osborne, who'll tell you that Harper tried to make amends with Genesis by gifting Genesis a bottle of her newest wine, the Cara. You're going to hear from Dr. Cannon, who's going to tell you that there's no medical or scientific evidence that can link this poisoning to Harper. And Harper Martini is going to take that stand and tell you she didn't poison Genesis. And that's important. Because today, the plaintiff is suing Harper Martini for battery. They have to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that it's more likely than not that Harper intended to poison the Cara wine to harm Genesis, and that Genesis died as a result of drinking this wine. But they won't be able to meet this burden because the evidence, the witnesses, and the truth doesn't just point away from Harper. It points toward Angel Rodriguez. Because Angel Rodriguez loved Genesis. Because Angel Rodriguez was running out of time. Because Angel Rodriguez knew that that rehearsal dinner was her last chance to confess her feelings. So just before the dinner, she took a deep breath. She pulled Genesis away and she poured out her heart to her best friend. And when Genesis rejected her, when Angel was filled with hate and sorrow and heartbreak, Angel made a decision. You'll hear that Angel sat right next to Genesis that entire dinner, close enough to slip something into his drink. And when Angel saw Genesis being violently ill, like she'd never seen before, she didn't call 911 till his heart stopped beating. And even when they were at the hospital, Angel didn't call Casey or the Harper or the wedding planner or anybody to tell them that Genesis was sick. And when she finally told Casey, Angel said that Genesis was in a coma because of pesticides. Before the doctor told anybody that Genesis had pesticide poisoning. Members of the jury, we're here today because somebody died. We're all trying to find out what happened. So to do that, you need to know the whole story. So what the plaintiff leaves out of their tragedy matters. What Angel Rodriguez leaves out of her testimony matters. What Angel Rodriguez left in that line matters. Because if you look a little closer at everything the plaintiff leaves out of their tragedy, that's where you'll find the truth. That Angel Rodriguez, not Harper, poisoned Genesis. And that's why, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Swenson, is going to come up here and ask you to find Harper Martini not liable. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel. And plaintiff, please call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Angel Rodriguez to the stand.
Okay. And Ms. Rodriguez, do you understand you're under oath?
Yes, sir.
Great. Good morning, and please proceed, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Please introduce yourselves to the members of the jury.
Hi, my name is Angel Rodriguez.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Rodriguez?
I'm a kindergarten teacher at RRB Elementary.
Why are you here today?
I'm here today because I knew Genesis Petrillo. She was my best friend and my maid of honor.
How did you meet Genesis?
I met Genesis at a bar. It was finger painting day at work, and I decided that I was going to have to clean after work because it was just a lot of stress throughout the day. I met her and Casey there, and we've been best friends ever since.
What was Genesis and Casey's relationship like?
It was honestly one of the best relationships I've ever seen in my life. They were both so caring, so very in love, and I just loved being around them.
When was their wedding supposed to be?
It was supposed to be June 8th, 2019.
And how were things going with the wedding leading up to that date?
Well, everything was really exciting. We had picked out the flowers. It was going to be lavender. And until Harper got involved, everything was going pretty fine.
Who's Harper?
Harper's Casey's mom. They were always fighting about wedding plans, going back and forth, and I didn't know what to really do with all of that.
I want to talk about the night right before, the day right before the wedding. How was that going? How did that start off?
Well, it didn't start off too well. I mean, like I said, that they were fighting back and forth constantly. And Harper had actually said something to Genesis that really shocked me.
What were they fighting about?
They were just fighting about the wedding plans. And then Harper said that if Genesis was going to continue to stay, then she would have to be out of the picture, that she was going to get rid of her.
How did Genesis react to Harper saying that she was going to get rid of her?
She told me to keep away from Harper, that she was worried about being hurt.
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay.
Okay, response.
Yes, Your Honor. This is hearsay, but there is an exception that applies. Rule 8033 permits then existing emotional states to be admitted onto the record. The statement by Genesis, "I am afraid that Harper is going to hurt me," is the then existing emotional state of fear. Therefore, this is accepted from hearsay.
Okay, defense counsel, any reply to that?
Your Honor, we don't disagree that that rule allows the statement, "I'm afraid of Harper," onto the record. However, we disagree that the second part of that statement, "because Harper is going to hurt me," is admissible under that rule. Because Harper is going to hurt me, it's not a part of that emotion, it's not a part of that emotional state, and it's not part of that exception to hearsay.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, I strongly disagree with counsel. Specifically, Genesis is afraid because she believes Harper is going to hurt her. That is directly related to that state of fear. That state of fear would not exist without that statement. Therefore, this does fall under 8033.
All right, so it's close. I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection.
Ms. Rodriguez, I'm going to ask again, how did Genesis react to the statement that Harper made?
Well, she told me to keep away from Harper, and I'm afraid that Harper's going to kill me if I'm not careful, and I'd never seen Genesis that serious before.
What happened after Genesis told you that she was afraid?
Well, after that, the wedding rehearsal was supposed to start soon, so I just headed there, and then Harper headed towards the kitchen.
What was Harper doing on her way to the kitchen?
She was holding a can of pesticides, but like I said, I just went back to dinner.
Did you ask her what those pesticides were for?
It was weird. I asked her, she said that they were for Genesis, but I figured that she must have been joking.
Like you said, you went to the dinner after seeing Harper with those pesticides. Were things any calmer between Harper and Genesis at the dinner?
Yeah, things started to calm down later on. I mean, Harper presented Genesis with a bottle of wine called Cara.
Did Genesis drink that wine?
She did. She drank several glasses outside, one glass of champagne.
And how was Genesis acting after drinking that Cara wine?
Genesis started stumbling around. She was slurring her words and she kind of just slumped over in her chair.
What did you do when she slumped over in her chair?
I tried to get her back to her room. I wanted to make sure that she was okay because I could tell that something was really wrong. And so I held her up by the back of her dress and I tried to walk her to her room. It was only a couple steps away, but it took me half an hour.
Were things any better when you got back to the room?
No, she grabbed me and she said, call 911.
Did you call 911?
I did. I dialed the numbers as fast as I could. The ambulance came right away. I rode with her the entire time.
What happened when you two arrived at the hospital?
We got there and they rushed her right into the ICU. I waited outside. I tried to ask doctors questions, but they just told me that she slipped into a coma.
What did you do after learning that Genesis had slipped into a coma?
Dialed Casey's number fast enough. I went back to Peony Estates and I tried to tell her. She ran to the hospital and we were too late.
What do you mean that you were too late?
Genesis had passed away and Casey didn't even get to say goodbye.
Ms. Rodriguez, you told us earlier that the doctor said she slipped into a coma. Did they ever tell you why she had slipped into a coma?
They said it must be some kind of poisoning. I didn't know it was alcohol poisoning or not, but later I had found out that it was pesticide poisoning.
How did you find out that the doctors thought it was pesticide poisoning?
Well, I asked Casey later on, I was like, did you know anything else? Do you have any more answers left? And Casey just handed me a copy of the death certificate.
Ms. Hunt, can you please bring a copy of pre-admitted Exhibit 7 onto the screen? And can you highlight the section that says describe how injury occurred? Ms. Rodriguez, can you read that highlighted section off for me, please?
Patient attended a wedding where patient ingested the organophosphate pesticide insofenbose, I think, at lethal doses along with alcohol. The most likely source of the poisoning is the wine the patient ingested with dinner.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. You can take that down. Ms. Rodriguez, what wine had Genesis been drinking the night she died?
She had been drinking Cara, the bottle that Harper Martini gave her.
Did you ever talk to Harper about Genesis being in the hospital?
I didn't know how Harper had known that Genesis was in the hospital. Because when I ran into her, she said, Genesis had been poisoned? Oh no, we'll have to cancel the wedding. I don't know how she knew that.
Had you told her anything about Genesis being in the hospital or being poisoned?
No, I didn't tell her. I was the only one with her at the hospital. I was the only one with Genesis.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have nothing further at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Swenson, I believe your cross-examination. But before we do that, Ms. Rodriguez, are you okay to go on?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do you need a moment?
Okay, I wish I had a tissue, but I guess my sleeps will do.
Understood. All right, Ms. Swenson, cross-examination.
Miss Rodriguez, I know this is hard, but I'd like to walk you through the events of June 8th just one more time, if that's all right. Let's start with that rehearsal dinner. You'd agree with me that something odd happened with seating at that dinner, right?
Yes,
See, Genesis and Casey, they were supposed to have their own table, right?
they were, but then plans changed.
They were supposed to sit right in the middle of the room.
That's correct.
But then, like you said, plans changed and they moved tables.
That's correct.
And so, because of that, instead of being in the center of that room where everyone could see them, they were in the back.
That's correct.
And because of that, Genesis was sitting right next to you.
Yes, I was.
You were right next to her for that whole dinner.
Right, as the maid of honor should be.
You were there for everything she was eating.
Yeah,
You were there for everything she was drinking.
that's correct. I was to the side of her.
And you were right next to her when Harper gave her that bottle of Cara wine.
I was right there, yes.
And even after Casey left, you stayed with Genesis at that bar for the rest of the night.
I did. I didn't leave her side.
There's a reason you did that, isn't there, Miss Rodriguez?
I was her maid of honor, and I wanted to make sure that she had the best night possible.
Well, Miss Rodriguez, that night, you confessed your love to Miss Petrillo, and she rejected you.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, Miss Rodriguez, let's face it, you don't have much of a memory from that night, do you?
I had a couple of drinks. I didn't count, but I was monitoring how I felt.
Well, that's actually right. You drank quite a lot.
I did.
You lost count of your own drink consumption before dinner had even ended.
Like I said, I was monitoring how I felt.
And you had even more to drink after that point.
That's correct.
After that point, you know that you had one or two cocktails.
Yeah, I felt like I could handle it.
You had a round of tequila shots.
That's correct.
And you were so drunk that you don't remember what anyone said while you were riding with Genesis to that hospital.
I don't remember the exact phrasings because my best friend was unconscious in an ambulance. No, ma'am, I don't know that.
All you remember was that your head was throbbing. Isn't that right?
Yes, I had been up all night. I had been drinking. A lot was going on.
You drank so much that you think you might still have been drunk at 9 a.m. that very next morning.
Like I said, it was a long night. I was very tired. I just wanted to be safe.
Is that a yes to my question, that you drank so much you think you still might have been drunk that next morning?
I might have been hungover. I might have been intoxicated, but yes.
I want to talk to you about your role in Genesis's death. You say that Genesis became sicker.
Argumentative.
May I respond, Your Honor? All right, Ms. Rodriguez, I want to talk to you about your role in Genesis's death. You say that Genesis became sicker and sicker as the night came on.
That's true.
You knew that she was violently ill.
Yes, I was with her the whole time. I called 911. I know exactly how ill she was.
You know she was vomiting so much that she couldn't hold down water.
Yeah, I know that.
But it took you until almost 1 in the morning to call 911?
I called 911 as soon as she told me to call 911.
Ms. Rodriguez, I didn't ask you when she told you to call 911. I'm asking you if it took you until 1 a.m. to do it.
It took me to 1 a.m. to do it. I was very confused. I didn't know what to do in that situation.
When the paramedics got there, they had to perform CPR. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
That means that Genesis's heart, it had stopped beating.
I guess I'm not a doctor.
But you didn't tell his fiance what had happened?
Not until I got back, no. I wanted Casey to hear it in person.
Well, you actually waited 7 hours before you bothered to tell Casey that her fiance was in the emergency room.
I knew that Casey needed to know in person. It did not feel like a text situation where I just dropped that on someone.
Well, Miss Rodriguez, to be clear, you had a phone.
I do have a phone, yes, and my head was spinning during that entire process. I'm sorry.
And you did call Miss Petrillo's family, isn't that right?
No,
Well, you waited 7 hours before you told Casey her fiance was in the hospital.
that's correct. I was just waiting for answers.
All right, finally, Miss Rodriguez, I'd like to talk about what you say happened when you came back from that hotel. So when you got back to the hotel, you told Casey what had happened, right?
That's correct.
In fact, you decided to come back because the doctors had told you that Genesis had been poisoned.
That's correct.
To clarify, that is all the doctors had told you.
That is all I knew.
No one had told you that pesticides were the cause of Genesis's death.
No, I later found that out.
Despite the fact that you just told us you had no way of knowing that morning that Genesis was poisoned by pesticides, on June 9th, that's exactly what you told Casey Soto.
I told Casey Soto the truth. I told Casey what he needed to know.
Miss Rodriguez, that's not answering my question. Did you tell Casey Soto that Genesis was poisoned by pesticides?
I told Casey that Genesis was sick.
So you did not tell her she was poisoned by pesticides?
I did.
You did?
I told Casey that Genesis was sick is what I'm saying.
But Miss Rodriguez, we need to be very clear for the members of the jury here. Did you tell Casey Soto that Genesis Petrillo was poisoned by pesticides?
No,
You're aware Casey Soto is going to testify today?
I'm aware of that, and I didn't tell Casey that. I'm telling you right now that I've said time and time again, I told Casey Soto that Genesis was sick.
If she says that you mentioned pesticides, she would be lying?
She would be lying.
Thank you, Miss Rodriguez. Nothing further.
Can you redirect based on that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Ms. Rodriguez, opposing counsel just asked you if you had professed your love for Genesis. Are you attracted to women?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just not.
I have nothing further.
Can you recross based on that point?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, you may step down and thank you for your testimony. Plaintiff, please call your second witness.
Plaintiff calls Dr. Rachel Cannon to the stand.
Okay, Dr. Cannon.
May we proceed?
Yes, Dr. Cannon, you understand you're under oath?
Yes.
All right, please proceed, Ms. Hunt.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
My name is Dr. Rachel Cannon.
What do you do for a living, doctor?
Currently, I am a consultant with Gardner Consulting, which is a firm located in Beverly Hills, California. Prior to that, I was chief toxicologist at Mass Gen in Boston before joining the faculty at Midlands Medical School, where I was the Dr. Sheikh Ali Professor of Toxicology.
Where did you go to school?
I received my Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from The Ohio State University, and then I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Medical School with my medical degree and an emphasis in toxicology. I've been working in the toxicology field for the last 25 years.
And doctor, how were you originally contacted about today's case?
Actually, I was originally contacted, retained, and hired by the attorneys for Miss Martini.
Did you complete any work for defense counsel?
Yes, I did. A defense counsel hired me to consult with them on this case. They gave me information to review, paid my $50,000 fee, and after conducting research, I submitted my full report to defense counsel.
What exactly did defense counsel hire you to do with today's case?
Defense counsel hired me to assess the works and findings of Dr. Ji-Min Kwan with respect to the death of Genesis Petrillo and any connection between her death and the wine produced by Harper Martini's winery, Peony Estates.
Did they provide you with any material?
Yes, they did. Defense counsel provided me with the report of Dr. Kwan, who was the emergency room physician in charge of Ms. Petrillo's care on June 8th, 2019, as well as numerous exhibits and the affidavit of Angel Rodriguez, and I found these all sufficient.
And how did you go about reviewing the conclusions of Dr. Kwan?
I conducted a comparative analysis between the information that Dr. Kwan reported in his report and my own expertise based on my education, experience, and industry standards.
Is a comparative analysis standard in your field?
Yes, ma'am. All my colleagues and I use it at Gardner. It's very, very widely used, well-known, and very reliable.
Did you reliably apply that analysis to the facts and data you were given?
Of course.
So, Dr. Cannon, what happened after you provided defense counsel with that report?
Essentially, I was fired. I never heard back from them regarding testifying here today, and the only reason I'm here today is because I did receive a subpoena to be here.
So, Doctor, let's talk about what that report found, starting with Dr. Kwan's conclusions. First, what did he conclude?
Dr. Kwan concluded that Genesis Petrillo died from respiratory failure caused by ingesting wine contaminated with organophosphate pesticides.
And Doctor, what do you know about the night Genesis Petrillo died?
I know that Genesis Petrillo presented to the emergency room department at River Valley Hospital Midlands in the early morning hours of June 8th, 2019. She was vomiting, she was having some slurred speech, and she was having trouble walking. I also understand that Ms. Petrillo was exhibiting incontinence and had constricted pupils. Eventually, I believe the doctors suspected organophosphate poisoning, and Ms. Petrillo was given the organophosphate antidote. Shortly after receiving it, however, Ms. Petrillo slipped into a coma and subsequently passed away.
Doctor, I'd like to break that down. First, what is an organophosphate?
An organophosphate is a type of poison typically used in pesticides and insecticides. Organophosphates inhibit the production of an enzyme in the body called acetylcholinesterase. And when the production of acetylcholinesterase is inhibited, the body overproduces another enzyme called acetylcholine. The buildup of that acetylcholine causes the nervous system to break down and ultimately fail.
You mentioned organophosphates are used in insecticides and pesticides. Do you have any familiarity with pesticides or insecticides?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. One of our biggest clients at Gardner Consulting is a pesticide producer, Detsky, Roach, and Rodent Killer.
Does that connection impact your conclusions in any way in today's case?
No, quite the opposite, actually. Although I have a business incentive not to find pesticides a likely cause of Ms. Petrillo's death, in this case, I could not responsibly do that.
So does that mean you agree with Dr. Kwan's conclusion?
For the most part. I agree that Dr. Kwan's conclusion is the most likely explanation for what happened to Ms. Petrillo.
Is there something you don't agree with?
The reason that I say that I agree for the most part is because there exist other potential explanations for her death that must be considered. Although I cannot necessarily say that organophosphates definitively caused Ms. Petrillo's death, I admit that the other explanations I looked into are unlikely, and that the most likely explanation for her death is in fact organophosphate pesticide poisoning.
So what are those other explanations you looked into?
I looked into explanations not considered or heavily explored by Dr. Kwan in his report. Those included the possibility of alcohol poisoning, the potential for an undiagnosed disease, or even an allergic reaction.
Doctor, did you find any of those explanations to be likely?
No. Although I cannot rule out any of those possibilities completely, I must admit that none of the possibilities I looked into are supported by the evidence I reviewed or the evidence Dr. Kwan reviewed. Quite frankly, I sought to answer the questions that Dr. Kwan did not answer, and I still agree with his conclusion.
So, Doctor, after looking at all of the evidence defense counsel provided you, what did you find the most likely cause for Genesis Petrillo's death to be?
Well, after reviewing all the information I received from defense counsel, I have to agree with Dr. Kwan. I found that respiratory arrest was the most likely cause of Ms. Petrio's death, that organophosphate pesticide poisoning was the most likely cause of that respiratory arrest, and that the wine produced by Harper Martini was the most likely source of that organophosphate pesticide poisoning.
Thank you, Dr. Cannon. We have nothing further at this time.
All right, cross-examination, please proceed when ready.
Dr. Cannon, I want to talk to you about how Angel Rodriguez waited for Genesis Petrillo's health to deteriorate significantly before calling 911. Now, Dr.
Objection, Your Honor, counsel is testifying.
Response.
Your Honor, I'm simply signposting, allowing for the jury to follow my line of questioning.
I agree with Ms. Hunt. You can ask questions to establish that, but I think you're going far out of the gate. So, sustain.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Cannon, you were tasked with determining Genesis Petrillo's cause of death.
I was tasked with assessing the works and findings of Dr. Kwan with respect to her death, yes.
And you're aware that Angel Rodriguez was with Genesis Petrillo on the night of June 7th, 2019?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
And that night, Genesis was violently ill.
Yes, based on my understanding, she was vomiting, she experienced nausea, and she experienced all those symptoms on the way to the hospital and at the hospital itself, yes.
Genesis couldn't even hold down water.
I understand that, yes.
Then Angel waited until about 1 a.m. to call the paramedics.
I believe 911 was called at 12:42 a.m., but that's the extent of knowledge I have based on why it was called. I just know that that's when it was called.
And when the paramedics arrived, they had to perform CPR.
Yes.
That means that Genesis Petrillo's heart stopped beating.
Yes, sir. That's why people perform CPR. Someone stops breathing or their heart stops working.
Dr. Cannon, I want to talk about your confidence in your conclusions in today's case.
Sure.
Now, you'd agree that Genesis Petrillo's symptoms are consistent with organophosphate poisoning.
Yes, sir.
And the wine found in Genesis Petrillo's stomach contained organophosphates.
Yes.
Genesis had low levels of acetylcholinesterase.
That's true.
Let's just make it easier for the jury to follow by calling acetylcholinesterase ACHE.
Okay.
Now, low levels of ACHE are correlated with organophosphate poisoning.
Yes, they are.
There's such a strong correlation that low levels of ACHE are used to conclusively diagnose organophosphate poisoning.
That's correct.
Now, with all of this information, you determined that the most likely cause for Genesis Petrillo's death was organophosphate poisoning.
Yes.
Dr. Cannon, I'm looking for a number here. On a scale from 0 to 100, how confident are you in that conclusion?
Sir, I can't give you a number for that conclusion because there are a number of factors that impacted the decision in this case. However, based on the information that I reviewed from you, the most likely explanation is in fact organophosphate pesticide poisoning.
So, Dr. Cannon, are you not confident in your conclusion?
Sir, I'm not confident in that the facts in this case support any definitive conclusion. Like I said in my report, there's no way for us to positively, definitively say what exactly killed Ms. Petrillo because there are a number of factors that, quite frankly, nobody can answer.
But Dr. Cannon, you'd agree that you'd be confident in saying that the most likely cause of Genesis Petrillo's death was organophosphate poisoning.
Yes, sir.
Now, Dr. Cannon, I want to contrast your confidence that organophosphates caused Genesis Petrillo's death with the fact you can't tell us how the pesticides got into the wine.
No, sir, I cannot. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
The low levels of acetylcholinesterase can't tell us how the pesticides got into the wine.
No, it cannot.
Genesis Petrillo's symptoms can't tell us how the pesticides got in the wine.
No, sir.
The test from Ms. Petrillo's stomach can't tell us how the pesticides got in the wine.
No medical test can tell us how pesticides entered wine, no.
You can't tell us whether Harper Martini put the pesticides in the wine.
I cannot tell you that. That's not in my knowledge.
You can't tell us whether Angel Rodriguez put the pesticides in the wine.
Again, sir, that's not in my knowledge.
Nothing further.
Ms. Hunt, any redirect based off of that?
Not based on that, Your Honor. I just ask that the witness be allowed to step down.
Okay. Dr. Cannon, you are excused, and plaintiff,
Thank
please
you.
call your witness.
We call Sam Arnold.
Mr. and Ms. Arnold, let me see. Either way, Mr. or Ms. Arnold, you understand you're under oath.
Oui.
Please proceed when ready.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Oui, bonjour. My name is Sam Arnold.
And what's your current occupation?
I currently work as the Rapid River Valley's most prestigious food service provider.
Are you originally from Rapid River Valley, Midlands?
Oui, yes, I'm originally from here, but I moved to France with my mama after my parents got divorced.
Did you stay in Midlands after you learned of your parents' divorce?
No, I moved to France with my mother, but I returned to Midlands just recently after I found out that my papa had fallen gravely ill.
Well, did you stay in Midlands after this?
Yes, I was just going to stay to settle the affairs of his estate after, unfortunately, he passed away. But I found out in doing so that he had left me some money to open my own restaurant. You know, he had always supported my dreams. And so I decided to stay.
Well, did you get to open that restaurant of your own?
Yes, but I think that Midlands, or perhaps the world, is simply not ready for Sam Arnold's breakfast salad cafe. My doors closed 6 months after we opened.
So, what did you do after your breakfast salad cafe had to close its doors?
Well, I decided to open a catering company for special events here in Midlands. You know, business was slow at first, and there was a bit of a learning curve. I had to make many things less French. You know, most Americans don't like snails in their food, but business has greatly improved over time, and now I'm a proud executive chef.
Well, did you meet the defendant, Harper Martini, in the course of your work?
I see what you did there. I like that pun. Course. But yes, I did. Harper and Peony Estates are my biggest clients.
Well, what events did you cater for Peony Estates?
I get their events there all the time, but I guess the most recent, the most important, I catered the rehearsal dinner for Casey Soto and Genesis. And I was also supposed to cater a wedding, both of which were at Penny.
When did you first get involved with the entire wedding process?
It was back in November of 2018. Harper called me and the wedding planner, Blair Osborne, and she asked us to help with the wedding. And I've known her and Casey for so long. I was so excited.
Well, before we get into the rehearsal dinner that you catered, well, I want to talk about the relationship between the defendant and Genesis. Did the defendant ever tell you how she felt about Genesis?
Oh, mon Dieu, did she ever? It seemed like Genesis was the only thing that Harper would talk about. You know, even the first meeting we had, I was trying to plan the menu, and we never even got it done because she couldn't stop telling me about how she thought Genesis was selfish, immature. You know, she never stopped talking about him, but that was not all that happened at that meeting.
Well, what else did the defendant say at the meeting?
I was about to leave the kitchen. We hadn't finished our menu. I figured I could just go home, do it myself. But then she took up one of the big metal kitchen bowls and slammed it on the counter. And she turned around to me and she said, "Anyone but Genesis. Literally anyone."
Despite all of these incidences, well, did the defendant ever try to make amends with Genesis?
After that, it seems like she tried to at the rehearsal dinner. She gave Genesis a bottle of wine and gave a speech in front of the party.
Now I want to talk about that bottle of wine. Had you ever seen that bottle of wine before the rehearsal dinner on June 8th?
No, never. It was a bottle of 2019 Cara, and it was given just to Genesis. I'd never seen it before.
Were there other wines being served?
Yes, the 2019 Cara went to Genesis, and all the other guests at the party got a 2017 Horizon.
And had you seen those other wines before the rehearsal dinner?
Oh, yes, I'm in the Pioneer Estates wine cellar all the time. I try and taste all the wines. The 2017 Horizon, one of my favorites. But the 2019 Carat was never in the wine cellar. I'd never tasted it, never seen it.
So what were you doing the day of the rehearsal dinner?
Well, I arrived at Pioneer at 11 in the morning, and I walked into the kitchen, and it was almost like the staff had never catered an event before in their lives. The kitchen was a mess, a complete disaster. So I spent 90% of my time rearranging everything, making sure that the dinner was made, and then I was going to turn and go to the rehearsal dinner space, but I saw a canister of the pesticide is sitting on one of the kitchen counters.
Had you seen this particular brand of pesticide anywhere else in Midlands?
No, I know I talk a lot about Pioneer Estates, but I do cater events all over Midlands, and Pioneer Estates is the only place I've ever seen use this pesticide. A bug off, it is called. Why it is in the kitchen, I have no idea.
Well, did the defendant tell you why that pesticide was sitting on the kitchen counter?
When I turned around to ask her about it, she told me that the pesticide was to kill pests like Genesis. And then she said she was just kidding, of course.
Well, did you serve that bottle of 2019 Cara to Genesis?
I delivered the bottle to Genesis at the dinner, just like her père asked me.
And you're aware that Genesis passed the next day?
Oui, yes, unfortunately, he was rushed to the hospital and passed away.
Now I'd like to talk about a conversation you had with the defendant about that bottle of 2019 Cara. What did the defendant say about this gift she was presenting to Genesis?
She said that the bottle of wine was something special, and she opted to take care of their problems forever.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Yep, thank you, Ms. Persley. And cross-examination based on that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Miss Arnold. I want to talk about what you did and didn't see Harper do with that can of pesticides. You told us on direct examination that you saw a can of pesticides on the kitchen counter at Peony Estates, right?
Oui, the morning of the rehearsal dinner.
And this was before the rehearsal dinner occurred.
Oui, it was sometime in the late afternoon.
Well, this canister wasn't opened, was it?
I don't believe so, no.
And you didn't see anybody open it?
No, I don't know how to work pesticide, but I don't believe it was opened.
You didn't see Harper put those pesticides in that wine.
Yeah, I hope she would never put the pesticide in the wine, no.
You didn't see any pesticides contaminating that Cara wine.
No, I never saw any pesticide go in the bottle of wine, no.
And Miss Arnold, you'd agree with me that you wouldn't serve wine that you thought had pesticides in it.
Oh, absolutely not. The pesticide is so dangerous. I was angry enough that it was in the kitchen in the first place.
But you still gave that Cara wine to Genesis.
I gave the bottle of Cara to Genesis after Harper told me to.
All right, now let's talk about what you did and didn't see at that rehearsal dinner. So Harper asked you to give Genesis that Cara wine when she made her speech, right?
Yes.
During her speech, you gave Genesis that bottle.
Yes.
But after Harper's speech, you left to the kitchen to pack up your things.
Yes, I was planning on going home. You know, I don't know anyone in the wedding party. I didn't really realize that I was invited. I figured I would go to sleep.
That's right. You packed up to leave the winery at about 10:15 p.m.
Yes.
And you didn't return to the winery later that night.
No, I did not. I didn't go back until the next morning for the wedding.
So besides your champagne, you can't tell us what anybody drank that night.
The champagne, the 2017 Horizon, and the 2019 Cara, that's all I know.
Well, Miss Arnold, you can't tell us if Genesis even drank that Cara wine, can you?
I could not tell you. Harper told Genesis that it was just for Genesis, that nobody else should drink it. So.
Directing you back to my question, you don't know if Genesis actually drank that wine.
No, je ne sais pas, I do not know.
And you can't tell us if somebody tampered with Genesis's drink.
From what I saw, no, but I don't think that anyone would do that the night before someone's wedding.
But I'm not asking you what you think, Miss Arnold. I'm asking you if you can tell us if somebody tampered with Genesis's drink.
No, like I said, I left it around 10:30.
And you can't tell us if that person was Angel Rodriguez.
No, but I don't know why Angel would do that to Casey.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Any redirect examination based on that?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right, this witness, Ms. Arnold, can be excused. Thank you for your testimony. I'm guessing that concludes the plaintiff's case in chief.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, does anyone know when all losses? I know they said it. I forget.
I believe it was 12:46, but someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Sorry. Was someone going to talk? We'll take it at 12:46. So I know you guys have a hard stop for 2.5 hours. If you guys want to take a recess, request it. I'll grant it. If you want to proceed straight through, happy to do it. I know, time's a little different with this process. So just, what do you guys want to do?
If we could have a brief 5-minute recess.
Okay, you can have 5 minutes. Plaintiff, are you okay with that?
Before we do that, the witnesses are listed on the participant list by their witness name, but I have to fill out a ballot with the competitor's name. So can we just run through all 6 witnesses so that I can get their actual name?
I have a question. Can you guys put that in the chat so that way, the rest of you can take your recess and we're not going through all of that? Would that be okay? Sam, are you good with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So you guys do that, and I'm guessing both teams need to do that? Yeah, looks like it. Okay, so if a member of each team could go ahead and do that, that'd be great. And take 5 minutes, so we'll reconvene we'll go with 11:20. All right, are both sides present and ready to proceed with the defense's case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed.
All
The
right,
plaintiff is ready to proceed.
plaintiff is good too. All right, defense, please call your first witness and proceed when ready.
The defense calls Casey Soto.
All right, Ms. or Ms. Soto, I can't remember which. You understand you're under oath.
Yes, I do.
Don't take it personally. I can't see you until you just start talking. So
Yes. It's okay. I understand.
please proceed.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hello, I'm Casey Soto.
Why are you here today?
My fiance, Genesis Petrillo, died on the day of our wedding, and people thought it was a good idea to drag me back into all this heartache.
Ms. Soto, I understand this might be difficult, and we'll try to get you out of here as soon as possible. But first, can you tell us about your relationship with Genesis?
Genesis was amazing. She always supported me no matter what, and she was just so good for me to be around. And even though she's gone, I still just love her so much.
Do you know Harper Martini?
Yes, I do. She's my mother. My dad died when I was little, so it was just me and Harper for a long time.
What was it like being raised by Harper?
My mom loves me. I mean, she didn't have any family other than me and poured all her love, energy, and time into me and work. She could be a little bit of a helicopter parent sometimes.
We've heard a lot today about Genesis's relationship with Harper. Can you share your perspective?
I was the only family Harper had left, and she was very protective of me. I think she found it a little hard to share me sometimes, and she didn't really like anyone I dated. Genesis was no exception. They fought all the time.
How did this affect your relationship with Genesis?
We tried not to let it. I mean, they might argue, but they were both still my family. So I tried to smooth things over as much as possible. It got harder after Genesis and I got engaged, though.
Why is that?
After Genesis proposed, I discovered that she had never talked to my mom about it. So when I excitedly told her about the engagement, my mom was shocked. And unfortunately, the tension between Harper and Genesis extended into the wedding planning.
What kind of problems did you encounter while planning the wedding?
There were the usual issues one might expect, bickering over the menu and location. My mom wanted it at the family winery. Genesis wanted to have it at Rosie and Pedro's. It wasn't too bad until Harper found out about our plans to move to France after the wedding.
How did Harper find out about those plans?
Genesis, actually. Way back at the beginning of May, Genesis, some friends, and I had gone out to celebrate finishing all the wedding preparations. We had a lot of fun, maybe too much fun, because Genesis ended up calling Harper while incredibly drunk and spilling the beans about her move.
How did Harper react to that?
I mean, my mom seemed angry, and justifiably so. I had never heard Genesis say anything as cruel as what she said on that voicemail. But despite everything, I really wanted the wedding to go through, so I worked hard to smooth things over before the rehearsal dinner.
Were you able to smooth things over before the rehearsal dinner?
Thankfully, yes. There were a few bumps along the way, but by the time the dinner started, my mom seemed like she really wanted to bury the hatchet with Genesis. She even gave Genesis a bottle of wine, some new blend she was working on.
How did Genesis respond to that?
Genesis seemed confused by the sudden acceptance, but never one to turn down a free bottle of wine. She brought it back to the table and poured a couple of glasses. One was definitely for her, but I'm not sure who the second glass was for. Maybe our friend Angel?
Who's Angel?
Oh, Angel Rodriguez. She was a member of our wedding party. Genesis and I had been friends with her for a long time. She spent more time with Genesis than with me, though.
I want to talk about the wine a little bit more. Did you see anyone drinking from it?
No, I went up to bed before Genesis had taken a sip. I was exhausted from the day's work.
Ms. Soto, what do you remember about the morning of June 8th, 2019?
I started getting ready around 7 a.m. And a little after 8:30, Angel came running into my suite. She looked a mess, red eyes and still in her clothes from the night before. I knew something must be wrong.
What happened after that?
Angel told me that Genesis was in a coma or something like that. Honestly, the only words I heard were Genesis, coma, and pesticide before I rushed out the door to get to the hospital.
Did you make it to the hospital?
Yes, Angel and I made it to the hospital at 9:32.
What happened after you got there?
Genesis had died. We were too late. 5 minutes too late. She had died at 9:27 a.m. I had no idea what to do. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I just collapsed, crying.
Thank you, Ms. Soto. Nothing further.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. Ms. Soto, do you need a moment to kind of gather yourself before we move on to cross, or are you okay to proceed?
I'm okay.
Okay. Plan of cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Soto, before we begin, I just want to say I'm very sorry for your loss. Unfortunately, we are going to have to talk about the events that led to Genesis's death, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You love Genesis very much, right?
Of course.
But like you talked about on direct, your mother didn't.
No, my mother didn't like anyone I had ever dated.
So she and Genesis didn't get along while you were dating,
That's right.
and getting engaged just made it worse.
Yes. Turns out Genesis didn't talk to my mom about any of her proposal plans, and my mom just wasn't expecting it.
Their relationship worsened as the wedding planning process continued.
Yes, it did.
And you say that that relationship got even worse at that pre-wedding party you talked about.
Yes, the night that I went out with some friends.
Yes. I want to talk about that night a little more in depth than you did on direct, all right? Like I said, that's when Harper learned that you and Genesis were going to France.
Yes.
You hadn't told her about that plan because you thought she would have a fit if she knew.
I did. She's always worried about me since I was very little, and I knew she'd be concerned about me moving so far away.
And so do you also know that she wanted you to take over the family business?
I did. I mean, she and I both knew it was more of a pipe dream than anything else, though.
And so it may not have been such a pipe dream to your mother. You would agree with me that you thought she was more in love with the idea of you running the family business than she loved you.
Certainly seemed like that at times, but I know that's not true.
You believe it to be true.
It definitely seemed like that sometimes. Yes.
You thought she might do something to keep you from leaving Midlands.
I knew she wanted me to stay in Midlands with her. Yes.
She wanted you to stay in Midlands with her, and you thought she might do something to keep you from leaving.
I mean, there was always some possibility. She would try and talk me out of moving away.
You thought that she would do something, especially if you were leaving because of Genesis.
Well, I definitely thought that she didn't want me to leave no matter why I was leaving, but I know she believed that Genesis was one of the reasons I was leaving.
When Harper learned about your plans to leave at the pre-wedding party, she started screaming about how she needed someone to take over the family business.
Yes.
She told Genesis that she'd better reconsider her plans.
Yes, Harper Harper was really angry. I think mostly because of the really mean things that Genesis had said.
She was angry, and she said that she needed somebody to, that Genesis needed to reconsider her plan to leave, correct?
Yes, yes.
And then she said to Genesis, Casey has to stay in Midlands. Whether you stay with Casey or not, whether you leave, I don't care. Whether you end up 6 feet under, I don't care. But Casey is staying here.
Yes, it was frustrating because it really seemed like I didn't have a say in the matter.
So that's a yes to my question. Harper said, I don't care if Genesis ends up 6 feet under.
Yes.
Better stay here.
Yes, like I said, it was just very frustrating.
All right. I want to move forward about 3 weeks to the day of the wedding rehearsal dinner, okay? At that wedding rehearsal dinner, Genesis told you that she was afraid Harper was going to hurt her.
Yes.
And we can agree that at the wedding rehearsal, after the wedding rehearsal, Genesis died of pesticide poisoning.
Yes, that's what Angel told me.
And that's what you found on the death certificate.
That's right. Much later.
You don't know that, Angel Rodriguez didn't tell you that Genesis had died of pesticide poisoning.
Angel did tell me that Genesis was in the hospital from pesticide poisoning.
Oh, ma'am, I want to break that down real quick. Angel Rodriguez came into your room around 8:30 in the morning.
Yes.
She told you that Genesis was in a coma.
Yes, she did.
And then you don't really remember what she said next, right?
I don't remember full sentences. I just remember 3 words so distinctly: Genesis, coma, and pesticide.
That's right. You remember 3 words, correct? That's it. You don't know that with Genesis, you don't know if Angel said Genesis is in a coma because of pesticide poisoning, or if she said Genesis is in a coma and I saw your mother with pesticides earlier in the day.
I don't remember distinctly, but I do know that Angel, I don't remember her ever mentioning my mother. She was just telling me that Genesis was in the hospital.
Just to be clear, for the sake of this record, she never said that Genesis had been poisoned by pesticides.
No, she just said Genesis, coma, pesticide, and I rushed out.
You know that Harper would complain that Genesis treated her wine as if it was poison.
Genesis made an unfortunate comment back at the beginning of our relationship about Harper's wine. Said she wanted something classier, which really understandably upset my mother.
And so your mother characterized it as treating her wine as if it was poison, correct?
Yes, yeah. Mostly because Genesis really just kind of avoided her wine.
You don't want to think that your mother would poison your fiance.
I don't think it.
You don't want to think it.
That's correct. I don't want to. I can't.
You haven't spoken to her since the funeral.
That's right. I decided to go to France on my own. I wanted to get away from all of this.
One of the reasons you haven't spoken to her since the funeral is because you don't really trust her anymore.
I don't trust anyone anymore.
Specifically, you don't trust your mother anymore.
That's right. I don't know who to trust. I just...
Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any redirect based off of?
No, Your Honor. I just asked that Ms. Soto be allowed to step down.
Okay, Ms. Soto, you are excused, and the court extends its condolences for your loss. Defense, please call your second witness.
The defense calls Blair Osborne.
Mr. and Ms. Osborne, you understand you're under oath?
May I proceed?
Yeah, please do.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hi, I'm Blair Osborne.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Osborne?
I used to coach for the New Zealand Breakers. I was actually the youngest coach in New Zealand Basketball League history. But it's lonely at the top. The stress of coaching really got to me. So I put my leadership abilities into planning little get-togethers, like some Sweet 16s for their Kardashian cousins, and I became a professional event planner.
Who do you work for?
Myself, of course. I have my own company, Bliss by Blair.
What kind of events do you plan?
Church basketball league banquets, naturalization ceremonies, the most exclusive bar mitzvahs, and of course, the event planner holy grail, weddings.
Where have you planned these events?
All over Midlands, from Calkins Campground to Rocketeer World, to our numerous esteemed wineries. It's really weird that our town has two. Some interesting supply and demand there.
Now, what do you look for in a venue?
I look for a place in demand. You want it to be exclusive. The higher the rejection rate, the better. You can summarize my brand as beautiful and safe, but not cheap.
Now, Mr. Osborne, you mentioned that you plan weddings. Did you plan Casey and Genesis's wedding?
Yeah, it was the worst professional experience of my life.
Why do you say that?
Well, Harper hired me in October, but I didn't get to meet Casey and Genesis until January. It's difficult to plan a wedding without the two most important people. It's like flying your team to a scrimmage in Australia, except you don't have a pilot and you also don't have a plane. But I tried my best, and thankfully they seemed happy with my vision for the wedding.
Were there any other complications in planning this wedding?
Yeah, Casey was almost completely uninvolved, and you're more likely to hit a half-court shot than to get Genesis and Harper to agree on anything. They constantly tried to go behind each other's backs and take control of the wedding.
How do you manage that situation?
To keep the wedding on track, I wore a lot of hats. Sometimes I act like a referee, such as when Genesis and Harper clashed over the choice between Taftika and silk linens, which, by the way, are the same thing. Other times, I was a firefighter, putting out fires, such as when Genesis secretly ordered 120-inch linens that clearly did not fit our 124-inch tables. It's honestly a miracle that we made it to the rehearsal dinner.
There's an objection on the table. Objection hearsay to which statement in particular?
To Genesis statements about ordering linens and different things about Genesis.
Okay, response.
Your Honor, the witness did not testify that Genesis stated that they ordered linens. The witness is testifying to his knowledge that Genesis ordered these linens. There's no statement elicited, and this is therefore not hearsay.
That's my recollection as well. Can you correct me if I'm wrong on that? I don't want to rule incorrectly. So is that the case? Plaintiff?
No, I heard that Genesis secretly ordered, as in gave him the orders to order these linens. As he is the wedding planner, all of these wedding planning processes go through Blair Osborne. Therefore, this is a statement being elicited on behalf of Genesis.
All right, response from the defense. This will be the final word on it.
Your Honor, that's not my understanding of this statement. The witness is saying that Genesis secretly ordered, as in bought, 120-inch linens. I can ask my witness to rephrase, however.
Yeah, so that seems like the middle ground. Just ask the witness to go ahead and establish that it's an observation, not a statement. We'll cover every base on that front. So just please do that. It'll be a brief thing, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Mr. Osborne, what kind of things did you do to mediate Harper and Genesis?
Yeah, as I said, I was also a firefighter putting out fires. One day, 120-inch linens just showed up at my house, and they clearly did not fit our tables. I'm not a mathematician, but it was a disaster. So it's a miracle we made it to the rehearsal dinner.
Well, let's talk about that rehearsal dinner. Where was it?
It was held at Peony Estates on June 7th, 2019.
What was the dinner like?
Ugh, it was more of the same. There are three constants in life: death, taxes, and Harper and Genesis fighting.
Did you try to stop them from fighting?
Oh, definitely. I went back to my roots and I set a hard screen to try and keep them apart, all at Casey's request, but the problem surprisingly solved itself.
Why do you say that?
During dessert, Harper stood up in front of everyone and gave Genesis a beautiful bottle of wine as a gift.
What happened next?
It was a really moving moment. I'm man enough to admit that I teared up a little bit. Even though I had it on my schedule that Harper was going to give everyone a gift, I didn't expect it to be so genuine. In that beautiful moment, I thought to myself, this is why I do this.
How was the rest of that rehearsal?
Fairly standard. People trickled out every now and then when they were able to escape an uncomfortable conversation about politics or their personal life with their cousins. Normal family gathering stuff. Genesis and Angel stayed the latest and drank until the morning. I didn't stop them. They didn't hire me to be the fun police, but I did tell them to drink some water.
Now, Mr. Osborne, I want to make it clear for the jury. Did anybody call you that night about Genesis?
No.
All right. Now, let's talk about the day of the wedding. How did that day begin?
Well, I arrived super early to help Sam set up. She was kind of a mess. Harper was there, and she told me how she wanted that day to be perfect for Casey, and that she wanted the wedding to be as wonderful as their marriage would be.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. These statements are an exception to hearsay under Rule 8033, motive, intent, or plan. We've established that Harper said these statements before the wedding, and they refer to her intent for the day to be perfect for Casey and her plan for the wedding to be as wonderful as the marriage will be.
Mr. Osborne, can you refresh me on the statements? I was writing at the exact moment they came out, so I want to make sure I caught them correctly.
Yes, I said that she wanted the day to be perfect for Casey, and she wanted their wedding to be as wonderful as their marriage would be.
Okay. So, plaintiff, how is a want not consistent with 8033?
Your Honor, this is not consistent with 8033 as it is not an actual plan. I plan to purchase these items in order to make the wedding perfect. These are plans, and this would be laid out as a plan. A want or a feeling of want is not consistent with 8033. Therefore, this is inadmissible hearsay.
Okay, so couldn't I say a feeling of want, as you just referenced, categorizes under the emotional state of mind under 8033?
Well, this is actually, the plan is not consistent with it. Though the feelings involved with, I want this perfect day, is consistent with it, but the rest of it is not consistent with hearsay.
Okay, so defense, I'll give you the final word on this.
Yes, Your Honor. We've established that Harper said these statements before the wedding, while she was getting ready for her daughter's wedding. This is consistent with her plan for the rest of the day and her plan for the wedding to be as perfect as Casey and Genesis's marriage will be.
Okay, so I'm going to overrule the objection. I think there's a few criteria by which it could meet 8033. It's not perfect. I understand your point, plaintiff, but I'm going to go ahead and overrule it.
All right, Mr. Osborne, what did you say when Harper told you that?
Well, I decided that Harper deserved one of my famous pep talks. I don't break them out very often, but I told her, when you're in the fourth quarter, you got to keep your eyes on the prize. She seemed, really excited for the wedding, which was the prize. And, we went to go get Genesis, but unfortunately we couldn't find her.
How did Harper react to that?
Well, she seemed really concerned. She said, if Genesis is throwing up in some gutter somewhere, I'll never let Genesis hear the end of it.
Objection, hearsay.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. This again goes to 8033, motive, intent, or plan. The full statement is, if Genesis is throwing up in some gutter somewhere, I will never let Genesis hear the end of it. This goes to show Harper's plan to never let Genesis hear the end of it if she found him throwing up.
Response, plaintiff.
Your Honor, that is not a plan. It is simple hyperbole and is not relevant in today's case, and it is hearsay. Therefore, it should be inadmissible.
Response?
Your Honor, opposing counsel just said that it's not relevant to today's case. However, how Harper felt about Genesis the morning of their wedding is extremely relevant to today's case. It's what we're here in court to contest. And furthermore, if Harper saying that she would never let Genesis hear the end of it is absolutely a plan. She thought that if she found Genesis throwing up, she would yell at him. And that's her intent.
Yeah, I definitely agree it has relevance. So, plaintiff, I'm going to give you the last word on this regarding the 8033 exception.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to say relevant, but this is hearsay because it does not meet that foundational requirement for a plan. It is not a plan, as it is simply saying, hyperbole, saying, if she's throwing up in some gutter somewhere, I will never let her see the end of it. That does not qualify under a plan under hearsay. Therefore, this is hearsay and does not mean an exception.
So, okay, I'm going to rule on this. I don't think hyperbole necessarily bars 8033 from applying. And I think insofar as the statements parse through, right, like the if portion of it, the antecedent to then I will do X, I think that could be argued that it's not for the truth, but only for the subsequent then response, statement rather from the witness themselves that's offering the statement of I'm going to do this. And insofar as it's a hypothetical, right, like theoretically it may not have truth value. I would definitely think that that could have different perspectives on that, but that's the basis on which I'm going to overrule it, but your objection's well taken. So please proceed.
All right, Mr. Osborne. So I'm just going to ask that question again. How did Harper react when you learned that you couldn't find Genesis?
She told me that if Genesis is throwing up in some gutter somewhere, I'll never let Genesis hear the end of it. She seemed really pissed that he was missing.
Were you ever able to find Genesis?
No. Genesis didn't respond to my texts or calls, and when I contacted Angel Rodriguez, the last person that I saw with Genesis, she ghosted me.
And did you ever find out what happened to Genesis?
Yeah, a little while later, Angel told us that Genesis had fallen into a coma. Everyone in the room, Casey, Harper, and myself, were devastated. It's like it hit everyone like a truck.
Now, Mr. Osborne, before the morning of that wedding, who was the last person you saw Genesis with?
Angel Rodriguez.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Forgot to unmute myself again. I apologize. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. And you testified on direct that planning the wedding of Casey and Genesis would be the worst professional experience of your life.
Yes.
And this is because it made you uncomfortable.
Yes.
You were not called in to join with the couple in planning this process until January of the next year.
January 18th, yes.
But January of 2019, correct?
Yes.
And you were called by Harper, the defendant, on October of 2018.
October 12th, yes.
But the defendant had a solution for your discomfort.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, she was going to offer you a 15% higher rate than your normal rate to stay discreet.
Yes.
And this totaled out to be $22,280.
Yes, weddings are expensive.
So in total, you received more than $22,000 to withhold the truth from Genesis and Casey.
Yes.
Well, now I'd like to move forward to the rehearsal dinner. You would describe the relationship between the defendant and Genesis as reaching a boiling point.
Yes.
In fact, the defendant gave a bottle of wine to Genesis at this time.
Yes.
The defendant had some words for Genesis at this time.
Yep.
And the defendant said, I got this just for you, but don't open it in front of other people.
Yep.
He said, I want this bottle to be just for you when you have a private moment to reflect on everything that you have done.
Yeah, it was really heartwarming. If anyone says I cried, I swear I did not.
So that's a yes to my question.
Yes, ma'am.
And you saw Genesis drink from that bottle.
I saw Genesis pour it. I was kind of far away.
Well, you're aware that that next day, on what would have been Genesis' wedding day, well, she passed.
Unfortunately.
Well, now I'd like to move back to a month before when you were talking to the defendant about Genesis. Well, the defendant said one of these days, Genesis will drink the wrong thing and it will kill her.
Yeah, she was really concerned about Genesis's problem with alcohol.
So that's a yes to my question. The defendant said one of these days, Genesis will drink the wrong thing and it will kill her.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any redirect based off of that?
No redirect, Your Honor. I just ask that my witness be excused.
Mr. Osborne, you're excused. Thank you for your testimony. Defense, please call the third witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Harper Martini.
Ms. Martini, I believe you're under oath. You understand that?
I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Please proceed.
Good evening. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi, I'm Harper Martini.
Now, Miss Martini, you've been with us in trial the whole time today. So I'm going to ask the question that's on everyone's mind. Did you poison your daughter-in-law, Genesis Petrillo?
No, of course not. I would never do something like that, especially not if it would hurt Casey.
Miss Martini, can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. I'm a business owner. I own Peony Estates, which is my winery. My parents and grandparents owned a winery back in California, so winemaking's in my blood. And Peony Estates is like my second baby, my first baby being my daughter, Casey.
Could you tell us about Casey?
Casey's my everything. My husband, Marco, and I fell in love in a winery in Argentina. And after we got married, we had this big plan to open our own winery together. But unfortunately, he passed away in a car accident before we ever got back to Midlands. But that's when I had Casey. And Casey was a living reminder of my beloved husband. And she got all his best traits too. She's so gentle and sweet, but so creative. So she was my motivation to keep chasing me and my husband's dream.
Did you ever make that dream happen?
I did. In 2015, all the overtime hours and extra tips finally paid off, and I was able to open Peony Estates and start not just scraping by, but actually providing for Casey.
How did you provide for Casey?
Well, after the winery took off, I was able to pay for Casey's college. All I wanted was for her to have the freedom to do whatever she wanted without being worried about money. And she got that freedom, but you know how kids are. She started making some decisions I didn't agree with.
What kind of decisions was Casey making that you didn't agree with?
She started going out with Genesis Petrillo. I'm not too much of a helicopter parent, but there were just some red flags with Genesis that kind of put me on edge. Genesis had a habit of drinking a bit too much. One day, Casey ended up in the hospital getting her stomach pumped because Genesis had kept her out for too long.
Well, how did you feel when Casey and Genesis got engaged?
I was horrified. I was so worried about what my baby girl's future would look like with someone like Genesis right there. I always did so much to take good care of Casey, and I was worried Genesis wouldn't do the same.
Well, we've heard quite a bit in court today about the tension between you and Genesis leading up to that wedding. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, there was quite a bit of tension. I was pretty against it at the start, but over time, as Casey told me that she really wanted this to work, I tried to be nicer to Genesis. But every time I did that, she would attack me.
What do you mean?
Well, there are a lot of instances, but one in particular was when I got a phone call from Genesis. And she told me that she was planning on taking Casey away to France, of all places, and that I would die alone in the winery and that no one would care.
Miss Martini, how did that make you
Objection,
feel?
Your Honor. Hearsay to Genesis Petrillo's statements.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, these statements are contained in Exhibit 8, which was already pre-admitted at the start of today's trial. They're already in evidence, and thus they can't be out-of-court statements, which they must be to meet the definition of hearsay.
Response, Ms. Hunt?
Yes, Your Honor. On those grounds, I do withdraw my objection.
Understood. So, okay, withdrawn. Please proceed.
Miss Martini, after Genesis told you that you would die alone in the winery and no one would care, how did that make you feel?
That made me feel so sad. It hurt a lot. But I think it was also a reminder, and it helped me realize that if I wanted to preserve my relationship with Casey, then I would have to accept Genesis. So at that point, it became my personal goal to make sure that the wedding went well by any means necessary.
All right, now I'd like to talk just a little bit about the day of that reception, June 7th. How did that day go for you?
Oh, there was so much going on. I felt like I was all over the place. I'm the only one doing anything to keep it together. But on top of all of that, I had to deal with bridal party drama.
What do you mean by bridal party drama?
Well, at around 4 p.m., I was going to go to the kitchen to check on some appetizers when I heard a screaming match from inside.
Did you recognize the voices?
I did.
Who did you hear?
I heard one of the bridesmaids, Angel Rodriguez, and Genesis, actually.
What were they saying?
Angel was screaming at the top of her lungs at Genesis, saying, "How could you do this to me? I love you." And then Genesis responded with just as much anger, saying, "I'm marrying the love of my life, and nothing you do will stop that." And then Angel pounced on Genesis. I think she was going in for a kiss, but Genesis just pushed her off.
Did Angel say anything after that?
Well, after she got pushed off Genesis, she stormed out of the kitchen and ran right into me. She looked horrified, which, if I had just loudly proclaimed my love in front of my lover's future mother-in-law, I'd be pretty afraid too. But she just stormed around me and said, "I will stop this wedding."
How did this affect your opinion of Genesis?
I think that, honestly, it kind of changed my opinion on Genesis. Obviously, I was shocked by everything that had just happened, but it was kind of nice to see that, if anything, Genesis would stay loyal to Casey.
Can you tell us how Angel behaved the rest of the night?
Poor girl didn't really seem to be able to get over it, if I'm being honest. Angel was really adamant that Casey and Genesis sit with her and the rest of the bridal party rather than at the sweetheart table that Blair had set up right in the center. And then once they were there, she was still sticking really close to Genesis.
What do you mean that she was sticking close to Genesis?
Well, she sat right next to her, right up against her by her seat. And then she also made plenty of runs to the bar to get Genesis drinks, which kind of made me uncomfortable as the bride's mom. And then even after Casey went upstairs to bed, Angel was still staying really close to Genesis. I don't know why she couldn't take the hint.
Did you ever say anything to Casey about Angel?
No. The last thing I wanted to do was stress her out about some stupid bridesmaids drama on the day of her wedding. And believe it or not, I trusted Genesis to handle it.
Do you know what happened between Genesis and Angel after you went to bed?
No. The next time I saw Angel was the next morning when she came to tell us about what had happened to Genesis.
Could you describe Angel during that interaction?
She was even worse than the night before. She was weeping and shaking, and her whole face was so pale. And she came to Casey's room where I was helping Casey get dressed, and she just started rambling.
What did she say?
She said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Genesis has pesticide poisoning." I didn't really get time to process it at that moment. I was just trying to process Casey's reaction.
Miss Martini, how did you find out that Genesis Petrillo died?
Angel called me.
How did you react?
I was horrified. I may not have liked Genesis, but she did not deserve to die. And even more than that, I watched Casey, the one person I loved the most in this world, lose someone she loved so much. And losing the love of my life was one of the most painful experiences I've ever endured. And I would have done anything, I would give anything to keep my daughter from ever experiencing that type of heartbreak. I would have done anything to keep Casey from that type of pain, but I couldn't do anything.
Thank you, Miss Martini. Nothing further.
All right, Ms. Hunt, please proceed with cross-examination when ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Martini.
Good morning.
Ma'am, you remember being deposed prior to today's trial?
I do.
You knew when you were being deposed that the plaintiff could pursue a claim of battery against you.
I was made aware.
You knew you could be put on trial for poisoning Genesis Petrillo.
I did.
Ma'am, to be clear, nowhere in your deposition did you say anything about an alleged altercation between Genesis Petrillo and Angel Rodriguez.
No, I didn't.
So that's the first time we're hearing about that is today in trial.
This is the first time anyone's asked me about it.
All right, Ms. Martini. Now, you, of course, love your child, Casey, very much.
I do.
Casey's only real flaw to you was Genesis.
Yeah.
You thought that if Genesis stuck around, well, then Casey wouldn't take over your business.
That was my biggest fear for a long time.
In an ideal world, you would find a way to make Genesis disappear from the face of the earth. True?
In an ideal world, yes.
And when that rehearsal dinner started on June 7th, you wanted nothing more than for Genesis to be gone.
That's how I felt, but I would never wish that type of pain or for Casey to have anyone but Genesis.
Ma'am, it's a simple yes. On the day of June 7th, you wanted nothing more than for Genesis to be gone.
That's how I felt, yes.
So you started to put your plan into place.
I'm sorry?
Ma'am, you recall giving Genesis a note, true?
Yes, I did.
You'd recognize that note if I showed it to you today.
I would.
At this time, Mr. Miller, could you please screen share Exhibit 24? Ms. Martini, can you see that all right?
Yes.
This is a photo of the note you gave Genesis.
It is.
The plaintiff offers Exhibit 24 into evidence.
Any objections?
Without objection, Your Honor.
So admitted.
Ma'am, this note that you gave Genesis reads, "Leave Casey and the enclosed $300,000 is yours. Otherwise, I will take you out of the picture the hard way. Don't make it come to that. You have till the 7th. Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. You can take that down. Ma'am, this plan, it didn't work.
I gave up on it.
Well, actually, ma'am, Genesis didn't leave.
No, yeah, she didn't.
So on the day of June 7th, well, you went down to your wine cellar.
Yes, I did.
You retrieved a bottle of Cara wine.
Yes, it was the first of its kind.
You had been saving this bottle specifically just for Genesis.
Yeah, Genesis had an affinity for really complex wines, and I thought it would be a good gift, and an olive branch in a way.
Genesis was presented with that bottle later that evening at the rehearsal dinner.
She was.
Everyone else in the wedding party, including your daughter, got a different bottle of wine.
Yes, I wanted a special gift just for Genesis.
Ma'am, you know the bottle you gave Genesis, that tested positive for organophosphate pesticides.
I found that out later, yes.
Those are the exact pesticides you use at your winery.
Yes, it is.
As the owner, you certainly have access to those pesticides.
Of course I do.
So I'd like to talk about what you knew about those pesticides on June 7th. You
Okay.
knew that only a sip or two of your wine contaminated with those pesticides could be fatal.
Yeah, it impacts people really quickly.
You knew that pesticides mixed in with a glass of wine were undetectable to anyone looking.
Yeah.
You knew all of this on June 7th, and June 7th was the same day you gave Genesis that bottle of wine.
Yes, both, to both.
June 7th was the day you gave Genesis to make her decision.
For the initial plan, but like I told you, I abandoned that.
And just a few hours later, Genesis died.
Unfortunately, yes.
Nothing further.
Any redirect examination based off of that?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Martini, you may be excused. And I'm
Thank
guessing
you.
that include the defense.
Yes, it does, Your Honor. We just ask for a brief 5-minute recess before closing statements.
All right, we'll take 5. Everyone reconvene at 12:11.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, both closers back and ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, Ms. Hunt, proceed whenever you're ready.
Yes. Counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. This was Genesis Petrillo. This was a beautiful young woman excited to travel the world with her new spouse, Casey. But the defendant didn't see in Genesis what Casey saw. Because what she saw was a problem, something to get rid of. And how does the defendant get rid of her problems? Pesticide. On June 8th, 2019, the defendant picked her poison. First, she tried bribery. She tried to offer Genesis $300,000 to leave, and when that didn't work, she turned to her second and final poison. This time, the fatal poison of pesticide. She herself retrieved that bottle of wine from the cellar, brought it up to the kitchen where she had a bottle of pesticides waiting, poisoned that wine, and it was presented to Genesis later that night, where she died just hours later. But we couldn't just tell you that's what happened. We had to prove it. We, the plaintiff, had to prove 3 elements by a preponderance of the evidence. And all that means is just a little bit more likely than not. So in a few moments, when you go back to deliberate, if you find that what we've presented you today is just a little bit more likely than not, then we've done our job. And we have. First, we've proven that an act was committed, that the defendant poisoned that bottle of Cara wine. Second, we've proven the act intended to cause harm, that by poisoning that bottle of wine, the defendant wanted Genesis out of the picture. And third, we've proven the act caused harm, that Genesis Petrillo died as a result of ingesting that poisoned bottle of wine. And to prove these elements, we called 2 eyewitnesses and a doctor. And together, through the testimony of Sam Arnold and Angel Rodriguez, we know the defendant was alone in her kitchen on the day of a rehearsal dinner with a bottle of wine and a bottle of pesticides, telling anyone who would listen, this is for Genesis. This is going to make all of my problems go away forever. Why would the defendant poison that bottle of wine? Well, that leads us to our second element, intent. It was in this note the defendant offered Genesis $300,000. It was in this note the defendant promised Genesis, take the money or I take you out. It was in this note Genesis was given a deadline of June 7th, the day of that rehearsal dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, June 7th came. Genesis was still here. So the defendant followed through on her promise. And how do we know that she followed through? Well, that's because of our third element, that the act caused harm. You heard today from the testimony of Dr. Cannon that the most likely explanation for Genesis's cause of death was organophosphate poisoning, pesticide poisoning ingested through a bottle of wine. But despite the fact that we have met our burden in today's case, in a few moments, defense counsel, they're going to come before you as well. And they're going to tell you a different story. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm betting they're going to try to tell you it might have been Angel Rodriguez. But members of the jury, don't be fooled. Think back to the testimony of Angel Rodriguez and of Sam Arnold, how the defendant was alone with that bottle of wine and that bottle of pesticides, looking to solve her problems forever. Think back to that threatening note, that deadline of June 7th. Think back to the fact that Dr. Cannon told us today the most likely cause for Genesis Petrillo's death was organophosphate poisoning, and the defense couldn't call a single witness to refute that. Because after defense counsel gives their closing remarks, I'll come before you again. I'll ask that you find the only verdict the facts in this case prove. I'll ask that you find Harper Martini liable for battery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hunt, and we will turn it over to the defense.
May I proceed?
Proceed when ready, yes.
They told you about the tragedy, but they ignored the truth. On June 9th, 2019, Genesis Petrillo died of pesticide poisoning on the morning of what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The Petrillo family lost a daughter. Casey Soto lost a wife. And Genesis Petrillo lost the rest of her life. Members of the jury, you're probably upset or sad or angry about what happened to Genesis Petrillo, and you have every right to be. No one in this courtroom disputes that what happened to Genesis Petrillo is a terrible tragedy. And no one is saying that you shouldn't be angry at the person responsible. But today, what Ms. Hunt has asked you to do is to take that anger, take that rage, and point it right at the first person you can find. They're asking you to say that because Harper and Genesis didn't always get along, because they had a couple of fights, that Harper must be the one responsible. And to ask you to do that, members of the jury, they need more than just their tragedy. They need the truth. They need facts. They need evidence. They need to do the work that it takes to prove it to you. Today, that's something they just didn't do. Because any way you look at today's case, members of the jury, it's not Harper who should be raising your suspicions. It's not Harper you should be directing that anger at. Because Harper didn't spend that whole evening as close as she could get to Genesis Petrillo. Harper didn't wait until almost 1 in the morning to call an ambulance. And Harper didn't know exactly what killed Genesis before the doctors ever did. That's Angel Rodriguez, members of the jury. It's Angel who had the means. It's Angel who had the motive. And it's Angel who had every opportunity to get back at the man who had left her. Now today, the plaintiff has charged Harper Martini with battery. That means that they just had 2.5 hours to prove to you, by a standard of the preponderance of the evidence, that it was more likely than not that Harper Martini intentionally poisoned that bottle of wine and gave it to Genesis with the intent to harm her. Now, it can be kind of confusing to see how pesticides in a wine can constitute battery, but here in Midlands, any type of poisoning can constitute that harmful contact that's needed for a charge of battery. Now, the plaintiff met a lot of prongs of their burden. They proved to you that pesticides were what killed Genesis Petrillo. They proved to you that someone picked their poison for Genesis Petrillo. But what they didn't prove to you, what they didn't prove because they can't prove it, is that Harper Martini and not Angel Rodriguez is responsible for that death. Now today, you got the chance to talk to Angel Rodriguez, and that's how you know there's more to her story than meets the eye. Because see, she told you that she knew Genesis was sick, that she'd never seen anyone sick like that before. But did she call 911? Or did she wait until 1 in the morning when Genesis's heart had stopped beating? Members of the jury, take a second and ask yourself this. If your friend told you that they felt like something was wrong, if they were violently ill, if they were vomiting so much they couldn't even hold down water, how long would it take you to call the police? How long would it take you to tell their loved ones what was wrong? Angel Rodriguez couldn't explain those things to you because there isn't a reasonable explanation. But we didn't even need you to listen to Miss Rodriguez's words, members of the jury, because just look at her actions. We know that Angel Rodriguez had every opportunity to commit this crime because Blair Osborne got on that stand and told you that she spent that whole evening as close as she could get to Genesis Petrillo. More than opportunity, we know she had motive because you heard today from Harper Martini what kind of woman Angel Rodriguez was on June 9th, 2019. You heard that she was desperate, angry, that she had just been rejected by the woman she loves. And in her own words, members of the jury, she would have done anything to stop that wedding from happening. But beyond motive or opportunity, which was all the plaintiff could give you today, we know Angel Rodriguez is responsible because on June 9th, 2019, she slipped up You heard today from Harper Martini that when Angel Rodriguez came back from that hospital, before Dr. Kwan had ever done that autopsy, before anyone had ever done the tests to know for sure that pesticides were what killed Genesis Petrillo, Angel Rodriguez had said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Genesis has pesticide poisoning." Members of the jury, at that point in time, the only person who could have known that there were pesticides in Genesis Petrillo's wine was the woman who put them there herself, Angel Rodriguez. And we didn't ask you to take Harper Martini's word for it. You heard today from Casey Soto that she only remembers 3 words from the moment that Harper told her Angel told her the love of her life was in the hospital: Genesis, coma, and pesticides. That's knowledge, members of the jury. Angel Rodriguez knew exactly what killed Genesis Petrillo because Angel Rodriguez was the one who killed him. But beyond that, we know Harper Martini's not responsible because let's take a second and look at the story the plaintiff has told you. If Miss Martini really saw Genesis Petrillo as a problem to be solved, as something to get rid of, well, then members of the jury, that would be murder. And when there's a murder, we don't sit here in court and talk about whether or not the accused murderer is liable. No, we decide whether or not they're guilty of committing a crime. But today, there wasn't any police report, there wasn't any forensic evidence, no officer of the law got on your screen and testified to you. And that's because the police did investigate today's case. They looked into that wine bottle and that note and everything Miss Hunt wants you to remember, and they never charged her with anything. The plaintiff wants you to believe that they have more compelling evidence of Miss Martini's responsibility than a police investigation was able to provide. Members of the jury, that doesn't make sense. Look, today's case is a tragedy. A young person's life was cut short, and you have every right to be angry. What the plaintiff's asking you to do today, that won't bring justice. So see past their tragedy. Follow the truth. Find Harper Martini not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swenson. Ms. Hunt, you have anything to say to that?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Members of the jury, I know this doesn't look like a typical courtroom, but we are still here today for a trial. So I want to make something very clear. This is not a criminal case. This is not a murder trial. This is a civil lawsuit of battery. That means all we, the plaintiff, had to do was prove by a simple preponderance, just a little bit more likely than not, that what we presented you today is what happened. And that's exactly what we did. But just like I told you was going to happen, defense counsel tried to get up here and tell you it was Angel Rodriguez. Defense counsel wants to tell you that today we told you the tragedy, but we ignored the truth. Members of the jury, defense counsel ignored the truth when they fired their own expert because they didn't like what she had to say. We had to call Dr. Cannon to the stand today. We had to tell you about Genesis's cause of death because after Dr. Cannon presented them with her report, she didn't hear back. Ask yourself, why did they try to bury her testimony? Why did plaintiff have to call defense's expert? Because we told you the truth. Members of the jury, they're trying to confuse you with Angel Rodriguez. So I'm going to ask you to think about just a few questions when you go back to deliberate. First, who had access to that bottle of wine and that bottle of pesticides? Was it a wedding guest or was it the owner of the vineyard? Who told people those pesticides were for Genesis? Who told people they didn't care if Genesis ended up 6 feet under? Was it Angel Rodriguez or was it the defendant? Who threatened Genesis the day she died? Was it Angel Rodriguez or was it the defendant? Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't ignore the truth. We presented you with the facts. We've proven that an act was committed, that the act intended to cause harm, and that the act did cause harm. Because of that, you must find Ms. Martini liable for battery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hunt. So I believe that concludes our trial. The scoring judges, Darai and Sam, are you guys good with filling out ballots? Are you guys per se done or writing comments or wherever? Where are you guys at?
Just about to hit submit.
Okay, Darai?
Same. Just finishing up. Just need about one or two.
Okay, cool. Take your time. So I want to start with what just happened. Ms. Hunt, that was an excellent rebuttal. That was excellent. We're going to dive right into comments since I know all loss is 1246. I'll just kick off because, scoring judges have a little bit more to finish. I really, really loved this trial. I judged one round yesterday at this tournament. It was like Furman and someone else, and two teams that are presumably off to a good start in invitational season. And this trial exceeded the standard that one set by a hefty margin. You guys were excellent. I didn't know coming into this who's who. Just based on my experience in mock trial, I can probably guess. So both of you seem like you're stemming from kind of the same family. So I'm guessing one of you is Miami and the other is coached by a Miami alum, which, just so you know, based on the profile of the teams that are here, I think Miami, I have an affiliation with because I went there, and then my best friend coaches Case Western, which is the other Miami affiliate here, I believe. So don't worry about any sort of bias. Just to start off with, I love both you guys equally. So anyway, just wanted to get that out of the way since I'm sure coaches will say something. And I'll front this as well. Whatever I say, your coaches should absolutely take priority. They know what they're doing more than anyone else in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And on the scoring judge end of it, you guys have two excellent scoring judges, two of the best competitors I competed with, Sam Hobbs and Darai McAllister, both All-Americans in their respective rights. And believe me, they will have good comments. Darai, are you good on your ballot?
No, actually, wait.
Sorry, guys.
Trying to press submit, not going through. So
see if you can text the number on there. I don't know. I'm not going to be honest with you.
text the okay.
Did you type in submit?
What?
Oh, do I need to type in submit?
It took me a second to figure out what was going on. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
You good?
Nope.
If you type in submit, the little drop down thing comes up and it says submit, and then you click that, and then another line pops up and you have to type yes and then click that, and then it works. I think it's wizardry.
This is giving me anxiety.
We're old.
Okay.
Technology doesn't fit us anymore. We never had this to do with this Zoom stuff when we were in undergrad. But anyway, and I want to start with that as well. I'm really proud of all of you as undergraduate competitors for taking the time to do this. I know it's a really trying circumstance to be an undergrad and to do mock trial, no less. Virtual tournaments are definitely not what you guys probably envisioned when you came into this activity, but you've handled it with pure grace and elan in doing this. And I'm really, really proud of all of you as just, someone who's graduated from this activity and has done it. I went to Miami for 4 years. I coached NYU for 1. That's my background in this activity. I decided not to go to law school and instead go work as a corporate lobbyist at first and then go work on Wall Street. So I managed to sell my soul in a few different ways relative to what a lawyer does. Anyway, so overall, I want to explain one thing that I picked up. Just that 8033 final ruling. What's up, Darai? That final 8033 ruling, which was the if person does X, I don't remember the exact statement, then I will do this. It was pointed out to me by one of the scoring judges, who's a little forward in her thoughts, Sam, that was a very long-winded explanation. So the backdrop to it is this: when she says if X happens, my interpretation of it is that theoretically does not hold truth value in and of itself, because it's a hypothetical, and I'm sure there's an implicit statement in there, right? Like that this person could engage in some sort of alcoholism that would lead to their death. But insofar as a plain text reading of it existed, I didn't think it met that hearsay threshold. And then the latter portion of it, I thought was classic 8033. So there was a little bit of something to parse through there. I hope that makes sense. I'm not going to say I'm, the perfect arbiter of what's right and wrong, but that was my logic for that. And then when it came, because we had two argumentative objections, I'll just explain the quick distinction. The first one I thought was more in line with what a typical signpost would be. Yes, it was aggressive, but I thought it was something, and I said it was cross-examination. I thought it was in the leeway to let it go. And then the second bit of it was, I thought more something that could be introduced as a fact. And so I went ahead and sustained that one, believing there was a remedy a different way and that it could come out. So overall, when looking at the trial itself, I don't know virtually anything about this case. I think based on what I understand, there are two different charges you can file, I guess, with battery and then some form of negligence. I had negligence yesterday. And I didn't understand a single thing about it. So today, battery, very typical, just forward thrust by my alma mater, just going after things. So yeah, excellent job. And I think that made clearly just a lot more sense to me. The plaintiff open, I kind of missed the theme in a lot of ways, and maybe that's my lack of attention span. I'm not putting that on you necessarily. I just didn't get it the whole time, and so I missed it a little bit, and I thought it could have been integrated into both sides of their cases, both defense and plaintiff. I thought it could have been a lot more present. Overall, when looking at the case, I think the early struggles teams will always have is how to condense, simplify, and organize information. And in this case in particular, the statements are far and away the most damning thing in it. The medical component's a necessity because it's a battery case, someone died, you need to know how. But one of the things clearly the statements are like, especially for the defense, for the plaintiff against the defense, those statements are horrible, where it's like, basically, I'm going to kill you if you marry my daughter. It's like, okay, cool, thanks. I think the thing that you need to be careful of early on is not making it sort of like a regurgitation of conversation where it's like, and then she said this and that and that and that and that and that and that. And it's hard to parse through that until you have that experience, but just be mindful of that. And no one was guilty of it to the extent I didn't follow what you were saying. This is just general advice early on. And then the expert for the plaintiff's second witness, thought you were excellent. With that, I think something to be mindful of for the cross-examination, and this is just something where judges, frankly, are not engaged with a lot of things that are happening all the time. And you talked about the scientific evidence in terms of like what the chemical was that was ingested, and they had gone over that on plaintiffs, their direct, and explained it very well. But I think for a defense, it's just important to reiterate, like, and you dealt with this thing, or you found this thing, and that does this. And you did a little bit of like a synchronization of, I'm going to refer to this as A, whatever, which was good. But I just think reiterating what it does is useful because otherwise I'm going to miss it. Character witnesses, really enjoyed them. I historically have never liked French witnesses ever. Just PTSD from like a few experiences in my undergrad. Sam's nodding immediately. But this was pretty good. And I thought it was engaging. I think something, or just try and flouse it up a little bit. So I think with the judging pool, based on what I've seen, you're going to skew towards a younger, at least in the invitational season, a younger judging base. And naturally, that is going to be something where people my age, our age, are going to want more excitement. We're not going to be like, oh, well, back in Muni court, what we do is this. Like, I'm not so interested in that. I would rather just be engaged. And so the French witness did that. I think you could have a bigger anecdote or bigger story, I think, in the beginning. Not that I thought there was any like massive criticism. I just think you can do that. Twinning off of that, the defense witness, the MBA guy. So I'm curious what the scoring judges will think of this. But insofar as this person is a basketball mind or affiliate with anything, and you reference the Kardashians, I would find a way to marry those two things in a very extraordinary way. I would be like, I'm the wedding planner that knew Lamar and then met Chloe, and we just got them together. That was after Kim and Chris and all that. Like, that to me is just the low-hanging fruit of something that I think really will catch some attention. That's just me, at least. If you had done that, I would have been like, check. Like, that's awesome for me. Let me see if I missed anything else. Closings were great. I really enjoyed both of them. I think that so far you're kind of experiencing, and this is no one's fault, early on in certain cases they'll have a bias. I think this case is plaintiff bias early on. And that's not to say defense didn't do an extraordinary job. I see Ms. Swenson nodding. So yeah, that's not to say defense didn't do an extraordinary job. It's just to say that I think the facts are more consistent with that, just generally speaking, and it'll change as the season goes on. That's fine. Defense, I really, I love the web of lies with what you guys were doing. I think the conspiracy can be done more effectively depending on organization. And there's some stuff I noticed on the cross of the expert in particular. And I can't remember what it was, but it was just how it was started a little bit, where I think you could have started with the medical bit and then gone. And I think you started with like what the conspiracy person, Angel, whatever, Rodriguez, could have done. And then you went to medical stuff and then you kind of went back to it. I would have gone medical first and then been like, let's see why that might have happened or something like that. So I would have concluded with that bit and just hammered that home, because that's something you have to pound with repetition for it to come through. Because conspiracies, judges are always like, first thing I heard, right? It's like recency bias. Like, I heard that the defendant did it, and now I'm hearing that someone else did it, and I don't follow that as well, because naturally, again, judges are very stupid. So yeah, I would keep that in mind. The impeachment of the defendant, really love that. I think you could go, I haven't read the deposition, so maybe you could go a little further when she was like, oh, no one asked me. One of my favorite things I think I've seen someone do was, I think it was Johnny Spear, he would do this. He took the question that was closest to what the answer should be, right? Like the question that theoretically would induce the answer that would be beneficial to the defendant. It would be like, well, you were asked this, and it still managed to never come up, right? And that's a lot of like how you sell that. Like if you're just like, and I think you have certainly the talent to do it, Katie or Caitlin, whatever. I think you certainly have the talent to do it. It depends a lot on selling it and presentation. If you just do it like a boring person, it doesn't do anything for anybody. But if you sell it, it can be really good. So I'm going to shut up now. Great round. Everyone was excellent. Your coaches, they're smarter than me. The scoring judges are excellent too, except Sam. Sam is my best friend, just so you guys know.
On that kind note, hello competitors, hello parents. Hope you just enjoyed that dig. My name is Sam Hobbs. As Ryan said, I competed at Miami for 3 years. Not for 4. He was there for 4. I was an All-American witness there. I then went to law school at Ohio State, where I captained my law school team to nationals. And now I am an assistant prosecutor in Columbus, Ohio. So that's me. That's what I do. So I'm in trial relatively frequently. So I also coach the Ohio State Law School mock trial team. So it's all up in this. I will not take 20 minutes to give you comments. I will make this much quicker. First comment that I noticed, plaintiff opener, you're proving a claim, you're not proving a charge. This is not a criminal case. You said we're proving a charge, and I immediately noticed it because it's a different thing. And I do some civil stuff and some prosecution, like some criminal stuff. So I know sometimes it gets tricky in your mind. I thought everybody who gave statements at times used their hands a little too much. I saw it in the openings and in the closings, and it's certainly something that I struggle with, but it was all I could focus on was where your hands were going, because everyone was moving them this way or moving them up or putting them down. And so just be mindful of how often you're using your hands. Everybody messed up genders, even of your own teammates. So just be mindful of that as well. The cross of the expert, I thought was good, but I thought you both needed to slow down, because these are complicated things, right? Like I don't know anything about the chemicals in pesticides and right? Like I'm just a dumb criminal lawyer, right? Like I don't deal with that. And every so often I'll deal with an expert, but I haven't had anything like that. So you guys were just lightning speed, and super proud of you that you both know what that means, but I don't. And so when you both take it that quickly, it's really hard for me to follow what's going on. The French witness, was much better than what I had seen in the past. So that was refreshing. But I did notice a lot of mumbling sometimes, and I had to work to hear what you were saying. And so then I was ignoring what you were saying now because I was still taking time to think through and process what it was that you had just said. So I'd work on that. I thought across the board, there were different times where we struggled to match tones with the witnesses. So sometimes a witness would be really sad and we were kind of happy, or we were aggressive, or a witness was kind of happy and we weren't. It yeah, I'm trying to think when it was. Something with Casey, I wrote down. I think Casey might have been sad, and the attorney was just like, all right, well, we're trucking on through. And you want to be kind of empathetic and just make sure you're matching and watch facial expressions, the timing between answers. If you are from the programs that I think that you are from, then you have pretty much scripted everything that was going to happen today. And it came across as scripted across the board a few different times. I noticed it on the plaintiff side and on the defense side. So just work on that. Don't be afraid to switch it up a little bit, add some fun new things in there. But overall, I mean, I thought everyone did a great job. I think you've got to be two A teams, given the quality of competition that we watched in the middle of October. So great job. That's all I have. Thanks.
Yay. Hi, everyone. Congratulations. I thought everyone did amazing. I'm going to be quick too. I always thought back in comments, the witnesses never got enough love. So I'm going to focus solely on the witnesses, just give a quick update or two. But yeah, I'm Dariah. I competed with Miami for 3 years. Character witness, All-American, 2014. So yeah, it's great. I don't deal too much.
Were you also a national champion?
Oh my goodness. Best part of all, national champion 2014. I miss my team so much. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't deal too much in the mock trial world these days. So please cherish it. If you don't plan on going into law, I loved acting and just I had did mock trial since like middle school. So definitely just one of my favorite hobbies. So if you don't plan on continuing on, please cherish the squad, the trips. Truly nothing like it. Truly. As far as witnesses, everyone was so good. I really love the witness and the character witnesses. Also, I mean the experts too. Dr. Cannon, Catherine, very good. I like the personality. For an expert, like I love to see the expert women and the good, like strong, very concise role. Angel, of course, Abby Grace. Loved you as well. Starting off strong. So I definitely think set the bar high. Love a good emotional witness. I loved your, I wish I had a tissue, but my sleeves would do. So I love the whole everything. I would say my notes are kind of unorganized, but. Oh, Angel, I just wanted to know, watch back sometimes repeating on your cross, watch back repeating what the lawyer has said, because sometimes we don't want to hear it again. It's not good to, I forgot which piece, but you just don't want to mention again if it's like almost detrimental to that side. Blair, of course. Benjamin, love that character as well. I thought very consistent on both direct and cross-examination, which I think is sometimes hard, especially when you're getting those objections. When you're the witness that the objections are just inevitable and your flow is always going to be broken up. I thought it was good the way that you maintained and you came right back to your character. So kudos to you. Of course, Sam, Emma, great. Love that role. I thought you were very consistent. I think accents are hard. I think that's like a hard road to tread down. So when you can maintain that consistency and still have your little funny quirks and little tidbits throughout, that's strong, because I do think it's hard. So I think already off the gates, good with that. And I would agree with Ryan, go even bigger. Absolutely. Harper / Anya, amazing as well. I think you have one of the most hard roles, essentially. So give us more, go even bigger. I think because all eyes are essentially on you, everyone's waiting for you. I think you just can always go bigger. I was always told, because I would get this critique a lot, even when like you'll know when you're too big, you'll get the comment, come back down. So I think again, amazing. But I mean, it was really amazing. But in regards to that, I played those roles a lot, so I feel like you can always go bigger if you just want to add a little bit more on there. And I'm trying to speed through because I know we're really time crunched. Casey/Emerson, good emotion. I love the different approach. I feel as though a lot of people are going to go really, really sappy, so I really, really liked your approach. Amazing. I mean, everyone's so good. It's so hard to give pointers that I think that are something that you haven't heard, but best of luck to everyone. I know you guys have to go, but best of luck. I really missed my trial, so I really enjoyed this. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a judge.
Good job, everybody.
All right, what do we do now?
Thank you, guys.
No worries. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, but I'm sure you want to go live your lives. Sam and Dariah, spend 2 minutes with me so we can catch up.
Do we have to?
F you.
Thank you for judging us.
No, not a problem. You guys are all great.
Guys.
Your coaches are tremendous. Like Kai and Wombo are geniuses. Neil, Jamie, Ben, etc. All brilliant.
Yeah, were we right? Are you guys cased in Miami?
Yeah.
Okay.
I swear to God, like I genuinely, like Kai is one of my best friends, and I went to
That's awkward too because, that's awkward. I hope I don't get in trouble, but
yeah. No, look, like genuinely.
no, I'm saying like in the sense that I feel like I should know the babies, or I mean, I should know you guys probably aren't even all babies, so like I feel like I should know you guys. So sorry
No,
about
I
that too.
I don't know anybody.
Me neither.
So after this, catch up, follow me on Instagram because I should know you guys. Hi. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
again.